Hey, what's up guys, it's Hayden.
Hey, and I'm Emma. Welcome to our channel. We have literally just got back from the cinema seeing Malignant, and oh my goodness, this movie has been on my most anticipated list of this year. I've been dying to see this movie for so long.
Anything by James Wan, we highly anticipate. He's one of our favourite directors.
Yeah. He just knows how to do horror well. So when I heard this movie was coming out, I was like, oh my gosh, cannot wait. Now, the trailer didn't actually reveal too much.
No.
For good reason, which we will get into. But yes, this... I was so jealous when you guys overseas were getting it before us. It's only just got here in Australia in October, in time for Halloween, of course. But look, before we go any further into the review, I just want to say a big welcome and thank you to our new subscribers, because we gained quite a few since our last video. So big thank you to you guys, and we hope you'll stick around.
Thanks, guys.
Now, we're going to be talking some spoilers in this review, but we will give you a heads up before we do that. We always give you heads up before we go into spoiler territory, so we'll save that for the last half of the video. For the first half, we will talk about as much as we can without spoiling anything, our thoughts and feelings. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you can stick around for this first half, and then we will give you a big heads up before we start spoiling things, because there are a few things
there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there's a few things we want to talk about.
Well, the general synopsis for Malignant is that this woman, Madison, who's in, I guess you'd call an abusive relationship, and something happens and she starts getting haunted by this presence. She starts seeing these murders, and you start to discover that she is a little bit more linked to this killer than what we might first expect. And we kind of follow her journey trying to unravel this mystery as to how she is connected with this killer. That's about as much as we can say without spoiling it. And that's the general kind of synopsis, IMDb kind of synopsis. But look, I'll say this. It is a little bit misleading. The synopsis, the trailer, it's all misleading you to think this movie is one thing.
Yeah.
And it's understandable because studios have to market movies a certain way. And if they didn't market it as just a straightforward kind of supernatural haunted house movie, then I don't know how else they would do it, because this movie is bonkers.
It is.
This movie is bonkers.
For lack of a better word, it is bonkers.
Definitely not what you expect, and I love that about it. I love that, I went in kind of thinking it was going to be kind of like, Conjuring, Insidious, kind of haunted house, maybe a little bit of like a slasher thing thrown in. And I kind of had those feelings probably the first half of the movie. And I wouldn't say I was disappointed with the first half. I was just like, okay, where are you going? All right, come on, James, surprise me. And boy, did he surprise me.
Yeah. About
halfway through, 3/4 of the way through this movie just hits another gear. And from then on, I just had a smile on my face. I just had a smile on my face for the rest of the movie.
I think we were even both laughing.
Yeah, we were both laughing.
But in a good way.
In a good way. It was just so much fun.
Yeah.
And thank God James has come back home to horror. We've obviously been following his journey ever since Saw. He's an Aussie boy, and Saw being one of the biggest horror movies of the last, 20 years. And look, his latest outings have been a bit hit and miss. His Fast and the Furious movie, I kind of hated, to be honest. I thought that was the movie that kind of threw me off the Fast and the Furious franchise. Aquaman was fun. It was a fun superhero movie, but definitely not what I kind of want from James Wan. I like James Wan where he started off and where he's kind of built his name, which is in the horror genre. And I think that's where he does his best work. And this kind of proves that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I think he's at home in horror. That's what he does well. And he kind of does a fresh take on it. He's got his influences. He's very much influenced by 80s horror. That's very evident here. It definitely brings that campiness, that cheesiness. It definitely has hints of it in the score and the music.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's definitely inspired by that 80s flavor, but he's able to put a fresh spin on it and do something that we haven't really seen before. And that's what I mean. Halfway through this movie, it just hits another gear and it just becomes something completely different, and it surprised me in the best possible way, and I love this movie.
I loved it too. And for so many different reasons. I think I do agree with you on the beginning of the film. It was starting to feel a little bit cliche horror, like, nothing new was really happening, very stereotypical.
But he was purposefully leading us to think that. He was purposely hitting on the cliches, leading us to believe it's one thing, so that when that twist hits, we don't expect it.
Yeah.
Or we think we know where it's going, and then we're kind of there. We got half of the answer, and then he just like, no, I'm gonna take it up to 11.
And oh boy, he did.
Oh yes.
Now, I definitely thought that, whether it was intentional or by accident, but I did see certain shots and scenes were very reminiscent of Saw. There were a couple of shots there I was like, oh, that's a bit of something you would see from the Saw franchise or Insidious.
I think that's just his style. That's just his style. And he's got a very distinct way of shooting that's very fresh. Yep. There was some really interesting shots that not a lot of other directors or filmmakers would be willing to do. There was this great bird's eye view shot of the house, almost like it was going through the floor plan of the house, like a bird's eye view of a dollhouse, just going room to room as she's getting chased through the house.
I really like that.
That was fantastic. And just some great James Wan-esque shots. And he just brings that fresh take, does something new and different. Even in that first half, when it seemed a little bit cliche, he was filming it in a different way, and the musical notes were a little bit different, that it kept it interesting enough up until it hits that twist.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the other thing that I thought was really cool with this film is the fact that it was set in Seattle. Now, we've got a little bit of a tie to Seattle because my sister now lives there. We were able to go and visit her a couple of years ago and see some of the sites that did appear in the movie. One of them was the Seattle Underground, which I don't really think we've seen in movies before.
I don't think so.
But it was a place that I remember I really enjoyed investigating.
I love the Seattle Underground.
It was so interesting, so spooky, has a really cool history. So I love that was incorporated into Malignant.
You in Seattle, check it out.
Yes, definitely check it out if you haven't. Gives you the creeps, that place. And perfect kind of natural set for a horror film. So that was awesome to see. And another thing I want to touch on is the special effects. This movie has some really cool special effects, practical effects, which if you've been following us, we are all about practical practical effects. Now, I do feel like, do you want to go into spoilers?
I think so. We can't really talk too much more about this without going into spoilers. But just to wrap up this non-spoiler section, we will say that we absolutely loved Malignant. It was probably one of my favorite horror movies since Hereditary, I think. Just really fresh, just really unique. It surprised me. I had a lot of fun with it. I was grinning from ear to ear. Welcome back to Horror, James Wan. This is where you belong.
Definitely. I have to agree. This movie, I did not know what to expect from it, but I was pleasantly surprised, and I definitely think you need to check this one out if you haven't already. It is definitely not a horror movie to miss. It is very unique. It surprises you. It's even got a little dash of silliness in there, which
if you love your 80s kind of B-grade horror films, if you love that cheese, then this one's for you. But
it's not too much that it puts you off. It's just the right amount.
Just a nice and sprinkling of cheese.
And a really cool score as well.
Oh, yes. I love the score. Very old school.
Very synthwave, if you like your synthwave. Anyway, if you want to stay around for spoilers, then please keep watching. But for you guys who haven't seen the movie yet, please don't listen to the spoilers because, oh my gosh, you just see this movie.
No, just press that like button, subscribe to our channel, do all that YouTube stuff, and then go and watch the movie.
Yeah, just don't spoil it for yourself, okay? Seriously, do yourself a favor, just watch it. All right?
All right, well, with that in mind, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right, so as you know, we are following this girl, Madison, as she's starting to see these murders happen. And she starts to feel this connection to the killer, this being that's kind of half haunting her, half kind of haunting her dreams, right? And so as this mystery starts to unravel, we start to learn a little bit of information, right? There's this hospital involved. There's this deformed killer.
On the loose. And
as we start to discover more and more the layers are peeled off and this twist is revealed, we discover that it's actually a conjoined twin called Gabriel that was removed from the back of her head when she was a kid. And you see flashbacks to it, and it's like this thing with like these arms, and it's like there's this formed face, and looks like it's got like an exposed rib cage. The creature design was on point. It was fantastic. I love that creature effect.
And
cool.
Shout out to Fractured Effects, I think it is. Who did those.
Great job, guys.
Oh,
so creepy. So this thing gets removed, so we think. Like, kind of gets like half removed, and the rest of it kind of gets put back in her skull. And then we find out that it's actually taking control of her body and just kind of like, you know, the back of her skull just like parts and it like pops out and just like takes over her body. And it's actually her performing the killings under control of Gabriel. Just that whole twist just took me by surprise. I was kind of halfway there. I was like, I think there's something to do with a conjoined twin and, you know, something like that. And that, you know, they've still got this connection, but I didn't think it was going to be the same person. I love that little twist. And when that's revealed and we're in like this jail cell and she just starts killing all these prisoners, from that moment on, I just had a smile on my face. I was like, this is dope. This is so awesome.
It was so unexpected. And I think we both were on the same page with thinking, oh, well, she had to have had a conjoined twin and they were separated at birth or whatever. And, you know, she's the good and he's the evil. But I was not expecting him to still actually somewhat be attached to her. And from that blow she had to her head when her partner smacked her into the wall, that's the thing that triggered him, and started, you know, getting into her head again. So, you know, her parents always thought she had this imaginary friend that she was talking to. No, she was just talking to old mate on the back of her head. Yep. So that was so creepy.
Love that reveal. Oh. And from then on, the movie was just bonkers. It was just bonkers in the best possible way. Yep. So much fun. You can tell that James Wan is influenced by like those B-grade kind of 80s, you know, slasher films and giallo films and just horror movies in general. Like just that kind of cheesiness, that campiness that he brought to it. The score, I thought, reflected that really well. I just loved it. I love that, you know, it kind of subverted your expectations for half the movie, and then once that twist kind of kicked in, it just became something completely different. Just went off the wall, bonkers, turned up to 11. It almost turned into almost like a John Wick / Matrix action film.
Yeah, it did in a way.
It was, I don't know, it was like so, drawing from so many influences. It's hard to explain, but it was just so much fun.
It's kind of got like a few genres tied into this one film. And
because it's like, it's walking backwards as well, because it's like him controlling her from like the opposite side of her face. So it's like, it's walking backwards and contorting and just moving so well. So the way they kind of block that and choreograph the movement, I thought was really well done. It was really cool.
Definitely. And I, you know, obviously in most horror movies, they don't like to reveal the entity, the creature too early on. You just see silhouettes and whatnot. And I knew from the get-go that, okay, we were dealing with something very abnormal, and I was just waiting for the reveal of what this thing looked like, because I loved the movement, you know, in the shadows, and just how quickly and almost ninja-like how it moved.
And you do need to suspend your disbelief a little bit with it. I mean, it does get very, very crazy. But if you go into this expecting like, you know, a very kind of serious film, I think you probably will be a little bit disappointed. It's not that kind of movie. I think you need to go in with an open mind and just let the movie take you where it wants to take you, and just have fun with it. And I think if you do that, you'll have a great time with Malignant. Yeah,
absolutely. And I, as we mentioned before, there is a little bit of cheesiness, bit of silliness to it. But I think it worked.
It does.
It was just enough that it paid that kind of homage to those really old kind of 80s movies, while still being very new and modern.
And look, I think if you're paying attention, like, you get that from the first scene, right? The first scene, the acting's kind of campy.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like it's a little bit different, like it's a little bit more kind of B grade, a little bit campy. So, look, I think it lets you know what it is from the first scene, right? If you're paying attention. It only takes like a little while for it to reveal itself in its entirety.
Yeah. And it's such a fun movie. It was a lot of fun. I just want James Wan to keep doing this sort of stuff.
Can you just stick to horror, James? Like, You're too good at it. You're too good at it. He just keeps it fresh,
Yeah.
right? He just keeps it fresh, and he keeps on almost like redesigning horror, like just setting the bar for horror. Like he did it with Saw.
Mm-hmm.
He did it with the Conjuring universe, and he's doing it again.
Yeah.
He's just setting the bar, keeping it fresh. This is what I want to see from a horror film. I'm kind of sick of all these, by the books, paranormal, supernatural horror films, haunted house, and you watch the trailer, I'm like, yeah, this is just the same shit, different day.
Which is what I was somewhat expecting for this movie. It kind of
I gave James a little bit more of a chance.
Of
I like,
course.
look, it's James. He's gonna have something for us.
Of course, but it kind of gave off the vibe of it was going to be another sort of supernatural horror
Yeah,
movie.
the same old jump scares. And this movie, it leads you into those kind of jump scares, and then it just holds back. It's like, no, we're not going to give you those jump scares. And I love that. I love that it just subverted that expectation, subverted the cliches while still kind of feeding into the cliches, if that makes sense, and then giving us something completely different. Yeah, really smart, really well directed. Just he wears his influences on his sleeve, James, and I love him for it.
Yeah, really cool creature designs, really cool character design for Gabriel too. It was very simple costuming with the cloak and the hair, but oh my goodness, it worked, and especially when that face was revealed.
Oh, so good. Kind of reminded me of Total Recall, like the conjoined kind of twin thing from Total Recall, as well as Imprint, for anyone that's seen Imprint, that Masters of Horror short by Takashi Miike. It reminded me a lot of that as well. Yeah.
So, and again, it's like he's drawn influences from these other horror movies while also drawing in flavors of action, and it was just chaos. It was just, there was so much going on, but I loved it. And the cinematography, I mean, he knows how to shoot a horror film beautifully.
Yeah, keeps it creative, really creative shots and movement. There was this one shot too, like next to the hospital with the cliff face, with the moon in the background, that I thought was beautiful. I didn't care that she parked too close to the cliff or, the logistics of that. I was like, man, this framing is gorgeous.
But I did lean over at that point and go, no one parks that close to a cliff face. Are you kidding?
It was dark.
So unsafe. But that whole hospital as well, that set design, it looks so cool.
Yeah, there was some really
creepy.
nice set design locations in this one,
Also, another thing I was like, no one would ever go to this abandoned, creepy place on their own either. I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Crazy. Anyway, I think we have rambled enough on this movie.
Yes.
We obviously loved it.
Yeah, if you can't tell.
If you can't tell. Great to see James Wan back in horror, and
where he belongs.
We hope he stays.
Welcome home, James. We missed you.
Now, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. We love talking movies with you guys. So if you've seen Malignant, let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, and make sure you do all that YouTube stuff as well. Slam that like button if you like what we do. Hit the bell for the notifications, be notified of what we've got coming up next. Subscribe to our channel and become part of the Headspace Films community. Most importantly of all, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
See ya.